The Brewster Buffalo has long been dismissed as one of World War II's great failures. Over the Pacific, Japanese Zeros shredded it. In Southeast Asia, British, Australian, and Dutch pilots cursed it. Yet in one unlikely theater, the Buffalo became a legend. In the hands of Finnish pilots, this flying coffin turned into a deadly weapon, rewriting its reputation and proving that skill and tactics could overcome design flaws. When the Brewster F-2A Buffalo first entered U.S. Navy service in the late 1930s, expectations were high. It was America's first monoplane fighter designed for carrier use, boasting retractable landing gear, an enclosed cockpit, and a top speed respectable for its time. But by 1941, technology had already surpassed it. The arrival of the Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 exposed the Buffalo's vulnerabilities in brutal fashion. At the Battle of Midway, Marine pilots flying Buffaloes suffered devastating losses. They found their aircraft too slow to climb, sluggish in turns, and incapable of matching the Zero's blistering agility. Pilots described it as a death trap that condemned crews before the fight even began. Similarly, in Southeast Asia, RAF and Commonwealth squadrons struggled as Japanese pilots carved through formations of Buffaloes with ease. Reports from Singapore and Malaya called it overweight, underpowered, and entirely unsuited for modern combat. Dutch forces in the East Indies fared no better. Despite determined resistance, Buffalo-equipped squadrons were overwhelmed in days. By mid-war, its reputation was in tatters. Allied pilots despised the plane, and commanders sought replacements as quickly as possible. In the West, the Buffalo became a cautionary tale of rapid obsolescence. Yet, as the Allies wrote it off, a small northern nation saw potential. Against all odds, the Brewster was about to be reborn, not in the Pacific or the tropics, but in the frozen skies of Finland. In the late 1930s, Finland faced a grim reality. Sandwiched between larger powers and vulnerable to Soviet aggression, its small air force relied on outdated Fokker biplanes. When the Winter War erupted in November 1939, Finnish pilots fought valiantly but with antiquated machines. With Soviet bombers pounding cities and bases, Helsinki scrambled for modern fighters. European manufacturers were overwhelmed and few nations were willing to sell. Enter Brewster Aeronautical Corporation. The U.S. Navy had recently canceled a batch of Buffaloes in favor of the newer F-4F Wildcat, leaving 44 aircraft nearly complete. Brewster saw opportunity, offering them to Finland at a crucial moment. Finnish negotiators jumped at the chance. Their only requirements were that planes had to be immediately available and run on 87-octane fuel, since higher grades were difficult to obtain. The B-239 variant, stripped of naval gear and slightly downgraded, fit the bill. By December 1939, 6 Brewsters arrived, too late to affect the Winter War, but Finland knew more conflict loomed. These aircraft were transferred to Lentolave 24, a frontline fighter squadron, replacing the Fokker D-Exekun. While the Winter War ended in March 1940 with heavy territorial concessions, Finnish leaders suspected peace was temporary. They used the lull to rebuild, train, and integrate their new American fighters. What seemed a desperate purchase soon became the foundation of Finland's future air defense. The Brewster's reliability, long range, and sturdy construction made it surprisingly suited to Finnish needs. Though mocked elsewhere, in Finland, the Buffalo offered hope. By the time Operation Barbarossa loomed in 1941, the flying coffin was ready for a second chance, and history was about to change. Transitioning from the Dutch-built Fokker D-21 to the American Brewster was no simple task for Lentolave 24. Pilots accustomed to open cockpits and fixed landing gear suddenly found themselves with heavier, more advanced machines. The Brewster offered enclosed cockpits, retractable gear, and far greater firepower with .450 caliber machine guns. Its top speed, while unimpressive compared to the latest Soviet designs, was still a major step forward for Finland's Air Force. The squadron, commanded by Major Gustaf Magnusson, quickly learned the Buffalo's strengths and weaknesses. It lacked agility and tight turns, but it was stable, reliable, and could take punishment, qualities valued in the harsh northern climate. Finnish mechanics appreciated its rugged airframe, which handled rough field conditions better than fragile European fighters. Pilots also praised its endurance, allowing long patrols over Finland's vast forests and lakes. Training emphasized tactical discipline. Instead of relying on aerobatics, Magnusson drilled his pilots in coordinated pair formations. This two-plane system, leader and wingman, proved far more effective than outdated three-plane elements. The Brewster's weaknesses demanded smart fighting, not reckless dogfights. Thus, Finnish pilots developed the boom and zoom style: climb high, dive for a quick strike, then use altitude to escape before the enemy could react. By the spring of 1941, WWII 24 was ready. The squadron had mastered its new aircraft and forged tactics tailored to Soviet opponents. With the German invasion of the USSR imminent, Finland prepared to rejoin the fight. The Brewster, once a symbol of failure, was poised for its most remarkable chapter, one that would transform it from laughingstock to legend. The uneasy truce between Finland and the Soviet Union ended on June 25, 1941. Just 4 weeks earlier, German officials had warned Finnish leaders of the coming invasion of the USSR. When German forces launched Operation Barbarossa, Finland prepared to reclaim lost territory. At dawn, Soviet bombers swept into Finnish skies, targeting bases and cities. WWII 24, now fully equipped with Brewsters, was thrust into action. At 6 a.m., 2 Finnish pilots, Staff Sergeant Eero Kinnunen and Corporal Heimo Lampi, scrambled their Brewsters from Salampea. They soon spotted an astonishing sight: 27 Tupolev SB bombers flying in tight formation. Against such odds, retreat might have seemed logical, but Finnish doctrine emphasized aggression. Lampi attacked first, closing to within 50 meters before opening fire. His bursts ripped into a bomber's engines, sending it trailing smoke before crashing. Kinnunen followed, setting another bomber ablaze. Despite being wounded in the arm by defensive fire, he pressed his attacks, claiming multiple hits and forcing several Soviet bombers out of formation. In just minutes, the 2 pilots scored 5 confirmed kills. Both men were instantly recognized as heroes, Kinnunen becoming an ace with his tally from the Winter War, while Lampi achieved his first official victories. Throughout the day, Soviet bombers continued their raids, often without escorts. Brewsters intercepted repeatedly, claiming additional aircraft. Finnish pilots' discipline, waiting until point-blank range before firing, maximized accuracy and minimized wasted ammunition. By nightfall, WWII 24 had accounted for nearly half of the confirmed Soviet losses. The Soviets claimed 130 Finnish aircraft destroyed on the ground, but records later revealed only 2 damaged. In contrast, Finland's fighters had shattered the 201st High-Speed Bomber Regiment. For the first time, the Brewster proved itself not as a liability, but as a defender capable of turning the tide. The Brewster was never a perfect fighter. Against sleek Soviet Yak-1 or the rugged MiG-3, it seemed outdated on paper. Yet Finnish pilots overcame these limitations through tactics and discipline. They knew agility alone would not save them. Instead, they turned their slow, fat Brewsters into predators through clever strategy. Central to this transformation was the shift from outdated 3-plane elements to flexible 2-plane formations. The leader-wingman pair became the cornerstone of Finnish aerial doctrine. While one pilot attacked, the wingman protected his tail, ensuring no one was left vulnerable. This teamwork allowed even outnumbered Finnish fighters to punch above their weight. The second innovation was the boom and zoom tactic. Instead of trying to dogfight more agile Soviet aircraft, Brewster pilots relied on altitude. They climbed above their enemies, then dove at high speed to deliver short, devastating bursts of fire before zooming back upward. These pendulum-like strikes kept them out of prolonged turning battles, where Soviet designs had the edge. Finnish training also stressed marksmanship. Ammunition was scarce, and pilots were taught to fire only at close range. Many engagements occurred at 50 to 100 meters, so close that defensive gunners struggled to respond. This discipline produced remarkable kill ratios. Soviet records frequently confirmed heavy bomber losses, while Finnish squadrons suffered only minimal casualties. Equally important was morale. Unlike demoralized Allied pilots in the Pacific or Malaya, Finnish airmen believed in their machine. They called it simply the Brewster, stripping away the stigma of failure. Mechanics kept them well maintained, and pilots trusted their rugged airframes to bring them home. In a theater where numbers and technology favored the Soviets, it was discipline, teamwork, and innovation that turned the Brewster from an obsolete relic into a weapon of legend. From June 1941 onward, the Brewster became synonymous with Finnish aces. Names like Eero Kinnunen, Heimo Lampi, Yrjö Turkka, Pekka Kokko, and Jorma Sarvanto entered the annals of aviation history. These men, flying an aircraft despised elsewhere, wrote a story of resilience that continues to amaze historians. Warrant Officer Yrjö Turkka, who had scored 4 kills in the Winter War, added 2 more during the early days of the Continuation War, instantly reaching ace status. Lieutenant Pekka Kokko, on June 29th, intercepted Soviet Barev MBR-2 flying boats. Though initially hampered by malfunctioning guns, he pressed his attack, downing both aircraft and cementing his reputation as a skilled marksman. Perhaps the most famous Finnish ace of this era was Captain Jorma Sarvanto, already celebrated for downing 6 Soviet bombers in a single sortie during the Winter War. On June 29, 1941, he added to his tally by damaging and finishing off a Petliakov P-2. Although unable to pursue the second bomber, his achievement reinforced his legend and boosted squadron morale. The pattern continued throughout the summer of 1941. Brewster pilots intercepted bombers and fighters alike, consistently coming out ahead. By carefully applying their tactics, they inflicted losses far disproportionate to their numbers. By year's end, Lentolev 24 claimed hundreds of Soviet aircraft, with kill-to-loss ratios as high as 26-1. These achievements were not simply luck. They reflected rigorous training, tactical mastery, and a culture that prized precision over recklessness. Against overwhelming Soviet numbers, the Finns carved out air superiority in their sector. Remarkably, they did it with a plane considered a failure everywhere else. The Buffalo, reborn as the B-239, had become the sword of Finland's aces. The story of the Brewster Buffalo is one of contradictions. In American and British hands, it symbolized defeat. At Midway, it was butchered. In Malaya and Singapore, it was a disaster. Dutch pilots fared no better, watching their squadrons obliterated. Yet in Finland, the same machine became a legend, flown with pride for over 4 years. By war's end, Finnish Brewsters had achieved staggering results. Lentolev 24 alone claimed more than 450 Soviet aircraft for the loss of just 15 Brewsters in combat. Kill ratios unmatched by any other squadron in World War II cemented the plane's mythic status. Even when newer German Messerschmitt Bf-10-9s arrived, many Finnish pilots remained fond of their sturdy Brewsters. What explains this paradox? First, context. In the Pacific, the Buffalo faced the Zero, perhaps the finest carrier fighter of its era. In Malaya, Commonwealth pilots were poorly trained and outnumbered. By contrast, Finnish airmen were superbly disciplined, motivated by survival, and fighting on familiar terrain. Second, adaptation. Finnish tactics matched their machines, exploiting strengths and mitigating weaknesses. Where others tried to dogfight, Finns used patience and precision. Where others doubted the Buffalo, Finns trusted it. Today, the Brewster remains a footnote in Allied histories, often mocked as a failure. But in Finland, its reputation is secure. Museums preserve its memory, and veterans recalled it with pride. Against overwhelming odds, the Buffalo became more than an airplane. It was a symbol of defiance, resilience, and ingenuity. The Brewster Buffalo may never escape its reputation elsewhere, but in Finland, it will always be remembered as the unlikely fighter that became a legend. The Brewster Buffalo's story is proof that reputation isn't always destiny. What began as a disappointment in American and British service became a weapon of triumph in Finnish hands. Against overwhelming Soviet forces, a handful of determined pilots transformed a flawed aircraft into a legend through discipline, courage, and ingenuity. Their victories remind us that wars are not only won with advanced machines, but with skill and resolve.